I'm here in New York City at NYU's Tisch School of the Arts, ITP, and I've been making a whole bunch of video lessons about working with data and APIs and JSON files. There's a loud noise outside. I like to have the window open for some air, but I think I have to close it. In today's session, I'm going to spend about an hour or a little over an hour, and I want to look at two particular APIs. The Wordnik API, which is one of my personal favorite APIs because I like words and Wordnik, as well as the New York Times API, which is a kind of a rich data set. And I don't mean to suggest in this session that, okay, these are APIs to use for, they are APIs to use for projects, but I'm looking at them in the context of they're good case studies of what APIs look like and how you figure out how to use them and how you write some code to get access to them. So I'm doing this as a live stream. There's a chat running where you can ask questions, but I'm gonna, at certain points during the live stream, I'm gonna hit a record button, which will record a 10-minute section as a kind of standalone video lesson that'll upload later to YouTube as its own thing. So the first thing I like to do is just check to make sure you can see me. Not that you need to see me, but you can see, and actually, one thing I'll pull up here is if I just open up the p5 editor here. This is a JavaScript editor. Oh, I don't know what's going on now. To make sure this font size works for you, that you can see the font here, you can hear the sound looks okay. And then if I come over here, over to this whiteboard and draw a nice smiley face and say, hello, is this clear? Can you read this text? Can you see it? So I'm gonna use the whiteboard, I'm gonna use the computer, I'm gonna use my own face and arms and hands, my voice to talk to you about this sort of stuff, and get started in a minute. So I'm going to check the chat. Some people are there and saying hi. So I haven't heard that everything looks okay and that you can hear me, but I can actually see in the in my sort of preview screen that the text and everything looks fairly legible. So let me know if something's not. Okay, so let me this is the part of the live stream where I get organized for what I'm going to do. So rather than prepare in advance, I sort of prepare during the stream and then hit the record button for the actual lessons that'll get uploaded later, and you can give me feedback or talk to me as things are going. So what I want to look at is just my list of things. So if you haven't watched any of these videos before, you haven't been with me on one of these live streams, I've actually now made 8, I think I have a little over 200 videos, but I've made 8 in this particular series about data. So started with just what is data in general, what are some different formats of data, looked at this format called JSON and how you could load JSON from a local file, how you could load JSON from a URL, and what it means to sign up for an API and get data from an API. So kind of assuming all of those videos, and the API that I use as an example is Open Weather Map. So I think what I'm going to, and then I looked at a few different scenarios, like how to get data from the API just when the program runs once, how to get it when the user performs an action, and how to get data continuously while querying the API over and over again while the program is running. So now, that's all the stuff I did before. And now today, right here in this moment in time, I'm going to just let's look at some other APIs and see kind of what happens. So I think I'll start with Wordnik. And so what I'm going to do in this first video is, so first let me get set up here. Let me get the, you know what I should do? By the way, let's do this together. There's a new version of the P5 editor. If I go to p5.js.org, there's also this lovely project, which is a collaboration between Processing, P5.js, the artist Leah, and the design firm So Limited, where you can order some clothes. That's an aside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to download the new editor right now, which is version 0.5.6. Just has some bug fixes and things in it. So I want to make sure I have that to work with for the examples that I'm going to make. So I'm downloading that. I'm going to go find it in my downloads. This is I must have done this yesterday, but I didn't actually install it, and I'm extracting it. This is like riveting, like narrating using a computer, and then I'm clicking on the file, dragging it to the desktop, and it's asking me if I want to replace it. And I do, replace it, okay. Okay, so now I have the new editor, and I'm gonna open that up. Oops, I have the old editor open, so I'm gonna close that. Did that actually work? We'll find out. I think that didn't work because of my incompetence of having the editor open while I was trying to install it. So let me do that again. Copy this over, replace. Now that should have worked. Move this up here, launch it. Yeah, I want to open it. Okay, so, and I'm going to close, I'm going to make a new, I'm going to be in the editor, and I'm going to make a new project, and I'm going to close this one. Okay, great. So this will be our empty standalone project where I will start to write code to use the Wordnik API. I also want to go to Chrome to get set up here, and I will Google Wordnik. So first, actually, I think what I might do to talk about Wordnik is first just look at the website itself and see how it has information about given words. And then what I will do after that is go to the Wordnik API, which I could probably just get to from here. And under docs is where I want to go. And then I'll start looking at how to sort of read documentation for an API and how you figure out how to use it. And I think what I need to do is make the browser a little bit smaller and a little off to the right so that I don't stand in front of the important information too much. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, anybody there? Yes, you can see and hear the screen. I've got a few people watching live, which is always nice. And I think I'm ready to start talking about the Wordnik API. You guys with me here? Okay. So I'm going to just go over. I'm going to cycle the cameras, which is a thing that I need to do because I have this thing where they like turn off every so often. I'm realizing one thing. I think the scenario that I'm going to use for the Wordnik API has to do with querying Wordnik for related words, words that are synonyms or antonyms. And there's this concept of a hypernym and hyponym, which is like a way of thinking of hierarchy. I'm saying this in advance because I think I might have to talk about this in the video, and this always gets me. So a hypernym is essentially a word that represents the category of other words. So primate being the hypernym for chimpanzee, and chimpanzee being the hyponym for primate. Furniture being the hypernym for chair. Does this sound right? Somebody let me know in the chat. It's like synonyms and antonyms, I got similar words, opposite words, lots of other ways that words have relationships. Okay, I think I got that. So I won't screw that up too much in the video. Checking the chat. I see some names that I recognize from ITP back in the day. Nice to see you guys here. Anthony. And I'm going to minimize this where I look at my face. And here we go. So this is first video. What I'm going to do is look, this is probably going to be about 10 to 20 minutes. I'm going to look at the Wordnik API, and I'm going to look at what it is, how you query it, and how you might make a little, the example I'm going to make is I'm going to make a little sketch that has a word that you click on, and when you click on that word, it replaces it with a similar word. It's going to be awesome. Okay, here we go. Let's just check the chat one more time, make sure no one's yelling at me like you can't hear or see me. Okay, here we go. In 3, 2, I need like a person to stand there on the other side and go in 3, 2, and by the way, I'm going to say this and then I'm going to start, and then I'm going to like screw it up and start over again. So I'm getting a little anxious. I feel like I have to go pee, but I'm just going to start anyway. Okay. In 3, 2, 1. Hello, welcome. In this video, I want to look at an API called the Wordnik API, which is an API that allows you to get lots of information about words in the English language. So on the one hand, this might be relevant to you in that you're interested in the Wordnik API. On the other hand, you just might be interested in how do you work with APIs, how do you work with data. So I'm really looking at this as a case study of one particular API, and I'll do a few more videos after this with other APIs like the New York Times API and maybe some API that involves images. Okay, so where do we get started here? So I'm using the p5.js JavaScript library. I'm using the p5.js editor, which you can get at p5js.org. And let's get started. So first of all, what is this Wordnik thing? So let me go to my friend. I don't know. My friends are things on the computer, apparently. The browser, and look at the Wordnik website. So here I am just at wordnik.com, and I could type in a word like rainbow. And I could see here that Wordnik is giving me lots of information about this word. It's giving me definitions, it's giving me examples, I can see here etymologies, where does the word come from, related words, synonyms, equivalents, hypernyms. So there's lots of information, lots of data associated with a particular word. So Wordnik is a vast dictionary and resource for gathering information about words. And I don't pretend to be an expert in it at all. I'm not an expert in anything, actually, but I'm looking at it from the lens of I'm a person who is talking about JavaScript code and data and APIs. This seems interesting to me. Let's try to make something with it. So now, this is just the Wordnik website. There's all this data there. So you have to ask the question, how do you get access to that data? Well, the lovely thing here is that Wordnik happens to say to you, oh, look, we have this data, we want you to have it, and there is this thing called an API, Application Programming Interface, a way for Wordnik's server, the programs that run in its server, to send your program data through JSON, through this format known as JSON. And if you don't know about how all that stuff works, you can go back to the beginning of this video series, which kind of gives you an introduction to that sort of data format and how this stuff works. But I'm going to click over here. And I'm just at developer.wordnik.com now, and if I went to that, you'll see there's a lot of information and things that you can look at. But what I'm looking for is this. I'm looking for this thing that says docs. So how easy it is to use an API is only as good as the documentation and examples are. And I think Wordnik is a nice example of an API that has good documentation. And so I'm going to walk you through how you can, I'm rambling way too much, but I am making a point in a way by rambling, which is that a lot of the work involved with working with data and APIs doesn't even have anything to do with writing code. It has to do with reading the documentation, playing around with the website, clicking on things, and figuring out how it works so that you know by the time you get to writing code, you know exactly what to put in your code. And that's the stage that I'm at right now. So let me click, I don't know where to look. Let me click on Docs, and here we are. And you can see, you know, this might be unfamiliar to you, like what's going on here, but you can see, so I've looked at this before, so I'm trying to I'm like doing like a method acting thing where I'm trying to pretend I've never looked at this before. But I'm seeing here, okay, there's a bunch of options here to click on, and this is quite common with APIs in that there's sort of commands that you can execute with an API. Like maybe you want to ask for information about one particular word, or maybe you want to get a list of words back, or you want to ask for information about a group of words. So these, what's being shown here are the different API commands that you can kind of start with. And I know for a fact that in the scenario that I'm imagining in my head, I want to get information about a particular word. So I'm going to click on this, and it's going to show me, aha. So in one of my earlier videos where I looked at Open Weather Map, the whole thing was figuring out how to put together this API query out of a bunch of pieces. So what the documentation is showing you right here is what are those pieces. And in fact, you can see like, if I want to get the definitions of a word, there's like this part of the path, then there's that part of the path, and what's this thing here in between curly brackets? Oh, that's the thing that I set myself. So if I want to get the definitions of the word apple, I need this part of the path and this part of the path, and I want to put apple in there. If I want rainbow, I want rainbow in there. If I want porcupine, I want porcupine in there. Just some words I'm thinking of in my head. So for this particular example, what I want to do is look for related words. So words that are synonyms, words that are antonyms, similar words, opposite words. Those are the things that it kind of might be intuitive to you, but there's lots of other ways that words are related to each other. Something's called a hypernym, like furniture is a hypernym for chair. It's like a broad category. And there are hyponyms, which are the things in that category, so they can have these relationships of hierarchy. So there's a lot more to this, and somebody with more knowledge about it, come and join me someday and talk about that. But I don't even need to be an expert on that. I can click on this related words and start to see, okay, now this is something that makes me personally super happy, and it should make you happy too if you want to work for an API. Work with an API, which is that this is a tool. So in order to figure out how to use the API, this is now an interface where I can start to do things like, okay, let me put the word rainbow in here. Use canonical, that must mean something important. We could kind of read about that in the documentation later, but false default, that's fine. Relationship type, I could pick a relationship type, or I could just leave that blank. Limit per relationship type, that must be how many things I get back. So you can see I'm sort of configuring the API call that I'm going to make. And then look at this button. This is the greatest button I've ever seen. I've seen a lot of buttons, and I'm sure I'll see a greater one later today, but right now it feels like such a wonderful button because it says try it out. So all I need to do is click on this, and you can see, first of all, look what I've got. I've got the full path to the API query. So this is that API query that I spent all this time figuring out with Open Weather Map. The tools of the Wordnik website are helping me make that query already. So I can just literally copy paste this into my code. And then it's also showing me what the response is. So you can see, look at this. Equivalent, a sea bow. Oh, a rainbow is equivalent to a sea bow. I don't know what a sea bow is. I guess it's a bow over the sea. And you can see that the hypernyms, right? Arc is like a broader category for a rainbow. Bow is a broader category. What other kinds of bows are there? My whole life, I only ever thought there were rainbows. Now I know there are sea bows and other kinds of bows. I mean, there's the bows you wear in your head. Okay, cross-reference, spurious, rainbow style, synonym, bowl, water. Anyway, so this is like fun. I mean, to me, this is just fun. Like I'm getting some moments of surprise here, getting some data. You might have a real reason why you're doing this. But the next thing I want to do, just to like really be sure that this is working the way I want, is I can take this full URL, and I'm going to just copy it again into my web browser, just into the address bar, and hit enter, and you can see, look at this. This is indeed the data that's coming back. So I've now done essentially all the work that I need to do before I start writing code. I found the API, I looked around the website, I enjoyed it. I found that it has documentation and an API tool to help me like configure a query. I did that. It made the URL address for me, and I put that into the browser, and I see that I'm getting data. So once I've gotten through those steps, my next step is to start writing some code. So really, I need to use the load JSON function to get this data, and then I need to practice all the things that I've looked at in previous videos, which is how do I get, this is an object, and then there's an array called words. The whole thing is an array. So how do we dig into the data? And I'm going to get to that. So let's get started. So okay, so one thing that I want to make a point of here is that once again we have this idea. I feel like I have to use the whiteboard in the video. Which is sort of silly. I don't really have to use the whiteboard. But again, I need to do this thing where I think about this API call in pieces. So I might have the path to the API. I might have my API key as a particular variable. And then I'm going to create that API call as like the API plus the API key. And then something that goes here in the middle. This is the word that I want to search for, like rainbow or something like that. So this is one of the things that I'm going to have to figure out is now that I have that really long URL, you can see it up at the top there. How do I break it into pieces to make the query in the code? So okay, so let me come back over here and let's start writing some code. First, I'm just going to grab this URL and I'm going to go back to p5 and I'm going to say var URL equals. And it's this long thing. Now, one thing you'll notice, by the way, is there's an API key in there already. Like, whose API key is that? Now, what Wordnik, actually, I don't know that this is true, but what I'm speculating is that Wordnik, when you're using their tool, just generates a temporary API key that you can use to try out the API. So hopefully this will work in my code for a little bit. If not, I have my API key saved in a file. But again, to do this yourself, you're going to have to sign up for an account, developer account with Wordnik and get your own API key. Or like analyze this video and use mine, which is fine with me. My API key, your API key. That's how I feel about my API keys. Okay, so a couple things I want to do is I want to first realize that like, okay, this is the thing, rainbow right there, that's the thing that I need to put into the query myself. So I'm going to put a end quote here, and then I'm going to make another variable that stores a rainbow, and then I'm going to make another variable that says URL2. So I'm going to just divide it into two parts. So this is one way of doing it, right? That big URL has the beginning and the end, and the one thing in the middle that I need to change. So I think this is kind of a way of doing it. Okay. So next. What I am going to do is I'm going to have a link on the page, which will be like a button, and I'll put the word rainbow in it. Sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second. I like went into some sort of trance state, forgot that I was making a video. Let me come back. What am I doing here? So first of all, actually, let me just check to make sure this works. So I just want to add load JSON, URL1 plus the word plus URL2, and then I need a callback where that data will come in. So then I'm going to add that callback. And the callback, the variable, the argument that's part of that function, that's what gets filled with the data. And I'm going to say print line data just to see that this works. So whoops, and I better save this as something, Wordnik. So let me run this and see if it works. And you can see, good, something is happening there. I got some data back. So first of all, we can be happy. We know that this idea works. Now what I want to do is put something on the screen that when I click on it, it makes that API call. So I'm going to make I'm just going to call it like a link. And I'm going to say link equals create a with that word in it. So, and it's going to link to nothing. So, okay, so I'm kind of jumping around here, but in the P5 library, in the DOM library, there's a function called create a, which makes an anchor link. You might say a href equals google.com and then Google. Here I want the word rainbow to link, but to nothing. I'm just putting the pound sign in there because it doesn't actually link to another URL. I'm going to handle the clicking on it. So if I look at this now, if I run this sketch, you can see here, there it is, rainbow up at the top. And I probably should add no canvas because there's like an invisible canvas there that's making the spacing weird. And I can run this again. You can see there it is up at the corner. So I don't have any like clever styling going on here, but there it is up at the corner. So now what do I want to do? I want to make it so when I click that link, I'm going to write a function called ask Wordnik. Then in that function ask Wordnik, I'm going to make that call to load JSON. Right? So here we've got I can type. So here we go, right? What do I have now? I have this web page that has a single link on it. When I click on that link, this ask Wordnik function will be triggered. That ask Wordnik function will make an API query to Wordnik and the data will come back. So the question is, what do I do when the data comes back? So first of all, let's just see that this is even working. So I'm going to run this again. What I want to see right now, what happens when the data comes back, I just should see something in the console down here. So I click on rainbow and I see something in the console down here. Perfect. Now what I want to do is look into that data and pull out a related word to the word rainbow. So let's go back to here where I had that data open. Now, what is this? What is this? Oh my God. I don't know. This is an array. You can see that square bracket at the top means that it's an array. What is each element of the array? It's a kind of relationship. So each element of the array is like equivalency, hypernym, maybe cross-reference, you can see. And then what's in each element of the array? A property called words, which has another array, which are the actual words that are related. So for example, if I wanted to get to this particular word SIBO, I would say data index 0 dot words index 0, right? Data is the whole thing. Index 0 is this first object. Dot words is that property. Index 0 is that SIBO. Let's try that. So I'm going to go back to my code and I'm going to say print line data index 0 dot words index 0. I think that's what I said, right? Let's just look at that. I'm going to run it. And I click on rainbow, boom. And look at that. The most beautiful two words in the English language to me right now that this is working. SIBO. So what could I do with that? Well, if I have access to this link, why not just change the content of it? So I'm going to say link.html. Oops, this is the wrong place. I don't need this draw function, I'm not using it. Link.html is that data. So there we go. And now, when I save this and run it again, let's zoom in here. I'm going to click on rainbow and I'm going to see SIBO. So I queried the Wordnik API and I got back a related word. What happens when I click on SIBO? Nothing. I'm still getting SIBO. So what I want to do is now, when I query again, I want to get a related word to SIBO. So I'm kind of playing a game of telephone with the Wordnik API 15 minutes into this video. If you're 15 minutes into this video and still hashtag SIBO. Okay, that's, I don't know. I don't know if this is really working, my whole hashtag thing. I feel like I'll, such a like doofus. Okay, so what do I need to do? This is always querying, oh, my finger disappeared. This is always querying the variable word. The variable word is always the word rainbow. What I want that word to be is now SIBO. So what I really need to do is update the variable to be that word, and then I'm going to update the variable to be that word, and then update the content. So now the next time it asks Wordnik, it's going to pass in SIBO. So that feels like a very strange word to say. So I'm going to click here, I get SIBO, and click there, I get rainbow, and click here, I get SIBO. Oh, rainbow, SIBO, rainbow. So there's a flaw in what I'm doing, right? The flaw in what I'm doing is I'm only ever getting exactly the first related word of the first related category. So what could be a better solution here? Think about that, think about this. Why don't I pick a random category and a random word from that category? So, something you might do right now is pause the video, stop, and like try to implement that yourself. I would wait for you, but that doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to go on and do this right now, and that's going to sort of wrap up this video. But this could be something that you could stop and try to implement on your own. But you can see that there's two numbers in here. I'm getting the 0 element of the data array and the 0 element of the words array. So what if I want to get a random element of the data array and a random element of the words array? Well, I just need to use the p5 random function. I could use the native JavaScript math.random, but I'm using the p5 library, which has its own random function. So I could say, index, and maybe I'll call it index1 equals a random number between 0 and data.length, right? Data.length data is that first array. So I want a random number in that array. But remember, random gives me a floating point, a decimal number. So I need to use the floor function to chop off that decimal. I don't want to be mean to the decimal. Just remove it nicely, kindly, put it to the side, and I'll talk to it later. Decimal friend of mine. So then I'm going to, now, once I have that, what do I need? But a random word from whatever I picked. So now data index 1 dot length, dot words dot length, right? This is now, right? I picked a random index into the data array. So I need to look at that array, that element in the data array, and get a random index of the words array from that particular element. And I'm going to call that index 2. So I'm going to say data index 1, words index 2. I did this kind of quickly, but hopefully this works. And now I run this again, and I've got rainbow, arc, flash, bash, bashed, clashed, clashes, dashes, dash, foil, frustrate, nugatory, slash. Okay, I don't know where this is going. I want to stop now. I'm worried I'm going to get like a word that's very embarrassing for me to say, like pumpkin. That's not embarrassing, but I don't want to say the embarrassing word because then I'd be embarrassed. I'm very, very easily embarrassed. I'm so embarrassed right now. So I think this wraps up this video. I mean, there's so much more to Wordnik. I really only showed you just this one aspect of it, of using this particular API call, which remember is related words, word.json related words. But I might encourage you, if you watch this video and want to do something yourself, go back to that API tool, come back here. I'm going to click back in the browser. Look at all these different possibilities. I could get example sentences, definitions, top example. Wordnik has this huge corpus of lots of source text, and you can actually get word counts per year, I think, of frequency. So you might look at something like how often is a word generally used in the English language over time. So there's so much possibilities there. I don't know, you probably have better ideas. Write it in the comments. This is like the longest video I've ever made. 20 minutes. And I thank you if you actually are still here watching. And in the next video, I think I'm gonna look at the New York Times API, which is yet another API. I wish I could stop and hear a question from you. If there is actually a live stream going on, maybe there will be a question, but I'm gonna instead just hit end record. Goodbye, and until the next time. Okay, hello. Is anybody still walking? Okay, watching. My brain is like not working today. Oh, I lost the chat, show chat. Oh, I'm in the wrong place. Live dashboard. Oops, I don't want to hear. 10 people watching. Okay, hi everybody. Did you watch that? Did it make any sense? Oh, and I clicked on the wrong thing. I'm doing all sorts of like lunatic stuff. I'm in the wrong place. Okay. Sorry, I said and like I was just like using all my energy to like keep it together for that particular like video that I recorded, which was 20 minutes, and I kind of like lost it for a minute there. But I'm back, and I need to take a little moment to get situated. I'm going to open the window because this is very hot in here now, and get some air. I think what I'm going to do is look at the New York Times API in the next video, although I'm open to other suggestions, but I feel like that's sort of like a commonly used one. So let me figure out, I'm over here now erasing the whiteboard. If you have any questions or comments, or if something wasn't clear, or if like there was a problem in that video, in that section, let me know. And I think what I'll do, I'm trying to think of what's a good, I mean the easiest thing, probably the thing that makes most sense for me is to use the article search API, where I can just pass it a word and get articles back from a given time period that contain that word. And I could display the headlines and maybe the snippet, like a paragraph from it. But if you have better suggestions of what might be a good demonstration, I'm open to that. I'm coming back over here. Let me get situated here, and New York Times API. I'm gonna need a short break for a second. I should get some. I just think I didn't bring a glass of water in here, so I might take a break for a second. I'll leave you guys to stare at this. I'll leave you something fun on the. I don't know what that would be. P5.js website. Okay, article search API. I think this is probably the thing that makes the most sense to start with, the article search API. Anthony asks Wordnik visuals. Certainly you could do a lot with visuals with Wordnik. I don't believe the Wordnik API provides you any particular like obvious data, but you could, for example, with the related words, you could build a kind of like networked diagram where you're seeing the relationship between the words instead of just one at a time. That would be an interesting thing to try. One thing Wordnik does have is sound files with word pronunciation. So that's kind of an interesting thing. You could kind of build a weird little almost like speech to text thing where you just like keep querying the API and getting a sound for every word and play it back. That's not speech to text, that's text to speech, but that's something that you could try. Okay, so I'm gonna 2-minute break. So if you're watching this, in like a recorded, you can just fast forward ahead 2 minutes. If you're on the live stream, just hold on. I'm gonna mute this microphone. Mute this microphone. I think you can hear me now, right? Yes, okay, good. I never went to mime school, and I always wanted to go to mime school. That's probably a weird thing to say, that you want to go to mime school, but I think it might actually be true in my case. The Jacques Lecoq School of Mime, I think it's in Paris. Anybody know that place? Maybe I can do that as like a summer vacation. And then these videos would be even more ridiculously weird. Okay, I can erase this. Wish it weren't so hot in here. I'm going to come back over here. And I'm back. So there's 8 of you online at the moment, which is nice. Okay, so I think I'm going to get ready to start. What is this over here? Oh, this is like a piece of tape. There's like something in the stream that right here. What is that? That's weird. Oh, it's this. Ah, this on the table is actually visible. Anyway, sorry. No one needs to be watching this part. Okay, so now I'm going to look at the New York Times API, and I'm going to do article search. And so let me open up P5, and I'm going to save this one, and I'm going to do save as, and I'm going to say New York Times. I would like to publish these code examples somewhere. I've been having people volunteer to like remake them and actually contribute to the GitHub repository because they're kind of doing it anyway with the videos. So if you're doing that, send me a note somewhere in the note space of the internet. Okay, so I think now I'm going to get rid of all this. Get rid of all this. I guess I'm getting rid of all of this. And leaving that there. And we're ready to look at the New York Times API. Okay, and if I just go to developer.newyorktimes.com, I'm on here. Okay, here we go. Yes, I could possibly do one of these entire, the cameras are shutting off, which is good that that happened. Do an entire video just only with mime. I don't think that would be that helpful, although it would certainly entertain and amuse me personally. Okay, oops, I left this one is off, sorry. About to get started here. I'm gonna drink this water that I got. It is 1:23 p.m. I have until 2 p.m., so we'll see. It might just do one more video. Okay, any last messages in the chat? And now I'm going to get started and do this New York Times one. Okay, I'm going to minimize that. I can see the sound is still working. And here we go. Oh, the window's open. I should close the window probably for sound. I can survive the heat for a little bit. Okay, boy. Here we go. It'll be much better in the winter when I can get like the really cold temperature coming in between. Hello. In this video, I'm going to look at how to use the New York Times API with I'm like used car JavaScript salesperson to Dan today. But anyway, scratch that. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just here. I don't know. I'm here and I'm making a video. Hopefully this is helpful to you. I want to look at the New York Times API. So how do you query the New York Times API? How do you get data from it? And how to use that in JavaScript Sketch. Ta-da! Okay, so this is the New York Times API. I gotta just start this one over. I'm sure people will be amused some data, but let me just start over. I don't need the used car salesperson thing at the beginning of this video. Okay, here we go. Hello, in this video I'm going to look at the New York Times API, which is an API that you can query to get information about articles in the New York Times. Shockingly, quite a surprise, yeah. So again, I'm not suggesting that this is the be-all, end-all of APIs to use, but this is a nice case study of finding an API that's out there. How do you navigate its documentation? How do you figure out how to form an API query and get that data, look at that data, and make something happen on the screen in a web page using JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and this thing over here above my head. I need a hat. I just would rather have that as a hat, called p5.js. Okay, so the first thing, once again, as in the previous video where I looked at Wordnik, the first thing is I can spend a lot of time without even writing any code or looking at any code. Because the first thing I need to do is just figure out there's an API, So one thing you'll see here, I'm already here, but I'm at developer.newyorktimes.com. So once again, you're at the mercy of the API. How good is the documentation? Are there examples? Is there an online tool that helps you navigate the API? And again, this is a case where there is a good one. And this is that question, like you went to the New York Times website, you found all this data, you want to use it. Is there an easy path to that, or do you have to take some sort of like side road? And in this particular video, I'm showing you the easy path. And in another video, we'll look at some side roads to how you might scrape or parse data that isn't presented in a sort of API, JSON-friendly format. Okay, so all that aside, here I am. Welcome, get started. This is nice, friendly language. It makes me happy that somebody's welcoming me to the page and I could get started. So the first thing you're going to need to do, by the way, if you're doing this on your own, is request an API key. So again, you've got to sign up for an account, get an API key. I don't know this. I have no idea what I'm talking about all of a sudden, which is most of the time. But I don't know whether there's any threshold of querying this API where you suddenly have to pay for its use. But certainly what I'm going to show you today, getting a little bit of data here and there, is something you can do for free. This is a great thing. This is something that, if you see, is good news for you. You're looking for an API tool, meaning you can figure out how the API works through an interface in the browser. We saw the same exact thing with Wordnik. So I could click around and look at various things, available APIs, but I'm going to go here directly to that API tool. And here you can see API console. Actually, before I go that, let me click to available APIs. So you can see here there's a lot of APIs. There's event listings and geographic data, most popular API, movie reviews. There's lots of different sort of sub-APIs, different paths within the larger API. I think I'm going to stick with, for simplicity, just this article search API. So interestingly, amazing, this is a kind of nice data source because it actually goes back to 1851. So I can query the New York Times to ask for I can search. I can say, give me all the articles that have the word rainbow in them, or the word that, seabow. There's such thing as a seabow, as I learned in a previous video, or porcupine, whatever. Pick your word of choice. You can find the articles. So I'm going to start with that one, and I could click on it. And it's actually, here's some documentation of how it all works. But once again, I'm going to prefer to go back and go to this API tool. And here I am. Article search API. So I could try one of the other ones, but I'm going to stick with this one. I don't know, this toggle all endpoints. That seems like a weird thing. What's an endpoint? But I think endpoint is like, I don't even know what that means. The weird language of these APIs. But endpoint is like the point of end of like the API where you're asking the thing. Toggle all methods. It didn't make any sense. All right. Okay, I know, because I toggled them all. There's only one endpoint, search. So that's probably the, toggle all methods. Okay, I've lost here. Oh boy. Somebody edit this part out where I'm sweating here very uncomfortably. So the point is, this is what I'm looking for. I want to get this interface where I can start to figure out how do I form that API call. And here we can see here that these are, I'm gonna stop this. I'm gonna take a break. I'm gonna come back. I don't usually like to do this. I'm pausing for a second and opening the window. Get some, which is that I think what I'm going to do is just start over from the part where I went to that page, because I'm going to see if anybody's saying anything in the chat. They're not. I'm going to just splice these two together, because the beginning of that was fine. And I will start over again. Actually, let me look at this. I'm going to look at this for a second just to try it out, and then I'll go back to the video. Because so if I go to the back to this here, and I click on search, and then I scroll down. Let me give myself a little more space here. I can see these are some things, like I want to look for rainbow, and a filtered query, begin date, end date. I'm going to skip all that. Sorting, I'm going to skip all that. So then I'm going to hit try it, and I'm going to get this, and it says overrate, so I can't use that. I can't use the sample key, which that was good to find out. So I need to go get my API key, which is in here. Ooh, I thought I had I have a sample key in my text file. Boy, it's a good thing I stopped that video. So I need to get my New York Times API key. I swear I had an API key somewhere. Okay, sorry everybody. Now, in this particular video, you're going to get to watch me sign up for an API key. No, 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 no. APIs, request an API key, log in. What's the chance that I'm going to remember my login? Anybody want to place bets on this? No, could not find a combination. So I think I better sign up. No, I could log in with Google. Am I logged in here with Google? Allow. Yeah, that'll work. Continue. Give me my API key. That sounded very rude. Please, could I have my API key? Refresh. Aren't I logged in now? Come on. There we go. Name of your application. I can change it later. YouTube video demo. My website is schiffman.net. The internet is where I heard about this API. Article search. I think that's all I'm going to use. So I'm going to say I agree. Register application. I probably should include this in the video, but now I have my API key, which I will copy paste. You know, I'm going to leave this open because I'll show it. That's good. And then now if I go back to here and I put this in here and I say try it, that worked and I got all this data. Okay, excellent. Ooh, I could use images, interestingly enough. Like, there might be images associated with some of these articles, which would be interesting. No, I'm going to do that in a separate video. Anybody still watching or here in the live stream, but I'm ready to. I can't decide if I should start the whole New York Times video over. I guess I'll leave what I had up until the point where I started going to the API console, and I'll splice that together. Anybody have any feedback? No, it's 8 of you here. It says to me that there are 8 people here. Hello to you 8 people. And there we go. So I'm going to back up now, go here, and I'm at here, and then I can close this, and close this, and I have this registration successful, and oops, and I click search. Great. Okay, great. What is this? Methods? That's just opening endpoints. Okay, fine. Okay, you guys with me? Let me keep going with this particular video. And I'm going to close the window. And I'm going to start again from the point where I was at this page. Just check the chat. It's very disconcerting to me when nobody says anything in the chat and the number of people watching keeps going down. Share with your friends. Let's get some more people involved here. I'd love to see a couple more people here live. Okay, here we go. Hi, moment of technical difficulty, but I'm back and I am on the API console. So the first thing that I'm going to do here is look at how the API console works to figure out what the query is I want to make to the New York Times. So I'm in the article search API, but of course I could change to a different one. And what I want to do is click here. This is the one, what's known as endpoint, being the point of end of the API where I'm going to get something. But really I think endpoint is referring to search. Or maybe that's the method. It doesn't really matter, this terminology. The point is I want to search the API, and this is the path for doing that. So I can click here, and I can see now, again, I have an interface. And yes, I want the format to come back as JSON. That's going to work well for me. And then Q is the search query term. So what's the query term that I'm looking for articles that contain that particular word? So I don't know. I really should think of something different, but I'll just keep using rainbow. By the way, no, never mind. And then there's other things. I could filter the search. There's a begin date and an end date. So I could restrict to only getting articles from like 1957 with the word rainbow in it. I could sort what I get back by a different order. So all that stuff is interesting, but it's also all optional right now. I'm going to leave it out. So I encourage you to look through this, try it on your own, add different parameters to the API search. But the point is I want to hit this now. Once again, the most beautiful button in the internet is the try it button, because that's going to let me just try the API without having to write the code to see how it works. Now, one thing here you can see, the New York Times will often give you some results with a key known as sample key. I've overused the sample key. So I tried this a minute ago and it's going to like tell me, no, sorry, you've overused the sample key. But I have registered and logged in for my own API key. So I'm not going to include this process in the video. If you have trouble, ask a question in the comments. Maybe I can help you. But once you've made an account, logged in, you will get your own key. And I'm going to take that key, and I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to paste it in here. And then I'm going to hit try it. And once again, we can see this is exactly what I want. The API tool formed the API query for me. And also, you can scroll down, you can see it's showing me the data. But this is a bit awkward to look at it here, so what's a little bit easier for me to do is grab this URL. Once again, open up a new tab in the browser, paste it into the browser, and now I can start to look at the data as it looks in the browser itself. So I can start now. So first of all, it might look like this to you, right? You might get this result. I have a particular browser extension which formats JSON for me nicely. I demonstrated in an earlier video. I think if you just Google Chrome extension JSON formatter, you'll find one. So, but even so, this is a good example of now a lot of APIs will give you back a ton of data. So really there's some detective work involved here in figuring out how to find the data. So let's say what we want to do is show on screen the headlines for all of the articles that contain the word rainbow, and maybe even a short snippet paragraph from those particular articles. So let's think about how we might do this. First of all, one thing I often like to do is start minimizing these. You can see that really the API is just giving me back an object with a response property, a status property, and a copyright property, which is important to note that we're getting some copyrighted material here. So I can unpack this response property. There's a meta property and a docs property. Meta probably has some information about the API query, how many calls I have left, that sort of thing. Docs, which has 10 items, I know this in advance, that's giving me 10 articles. So most APIs won't give you back all 10,000 articles all at once. They're going to give you 10 at a time, and there's a way of paging through them, but that's a bit beyond the scope of this particular video. But what I want to do is here look at docs. And docs is an array, so you can see these are each element of the array. So each one of these elements of the array is one particular article. So in this particular article, now I need to zoom back out here and look. Okay, multimedia, headline, there we go, keywords. There's so much information, publication date, byline. You can see some things are right there, like snippet, lead paragraph, abstract. I'm kind of interested in the headline, which is now in another object. So I can unpack that and see main, kicker, print headline. So we can see, I could spend all day here looking into the API, but I can kind of imagine now what I want if I want the headline is response.docs, index 0 for the first one, .headline, .main. So I weirdly feel like I have that memorized now, probably because I've used the New York Times API a bunch of times. But this is the kind of thing that you're going to be needing to take notes, practice, going to make a mistake, try it again. This is the kind of thing you're going to want to do on your own. But now we are ready to go back and start to write code. We've looked at the API website, we've looked at the documentation, we've used the tool, and we've got a working path to getting data. And so now I'm going to go back to P5, and I'm going to say, just at the beginning, load JSON, and I want the API URL, I'll have that as a variable, and a callback called getData. So I'm going to make a variable, which is the URL, and I'm going to paste this URL right in here. Now, for expediency here, I'm not going to go through the steps of breaking that URL into parts. I've done that several times in several other videos now. And in fact, I would say probably the exercise for you at the end of this video is to have the user input the search word and then get particular articles back with that search word. Right now, I'm just going to get rainbow articles. But the first thing I want to do, what I need to do right now is write this getData callback. And remember, the getData callback needs an argument. That's where the data from the API, they will fill that variable with the data. And I can just look at it to make sure it's working in the console. I'm not really going to look at it in the console, but I want to just hope that I see something there. And you can see there is something there. So hopefully we can feel pretty confident that what's there is exactly the same as here. So now let's think about this again. Response.docs, index 0, .headline, .main. Let's work with that. Data.response.docs, index 0, .headline, .main. Did I dare possibly get that right? Let's try it again. Let's run it. Looks like I got that right. Let's look at the second article to see what the headline is. I'm changing that number 0. Hollywood dreams. That makes sense that you might have a rainbow in your Hollywood dreams. My Hollywood dreams consist of YouTube videos about data and APIs, which is sort of a strange Hollywood dream, some might say. Something to, I don't know where I'm going with this. I'll stop now. Where are we? Oh, I've only been doing this. Oh, no, I forgot I have 2 sections here. Anyway, I'm back. Okay, so blah, blah, blah. What do I want to do with this? Well, I want to make something appear in the browser. Now, there's a lot of interesting applications here, and maybe I'll get to some ideas for you towards the end of this video. But right now, let's at least make it loop through and show me every headline and perhaps also a snippet. So let's go back to this. You can see snippet is actually just response.docs index0.snippet. Snippet being like a short paragraph or a snippet from the article to give us some more information. So one thing that happens here is that I have an array, data.response.docs. And you know what I think can be useful? This is a useful technique. If I just make up a variable called articles and say articles is data.response.docs, like I'm going to need in every time I try to look for data, I'm going to need to say data.response.docs, blah, 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 data.response.docs, da-da-da. Remix this has kind of like a rhythmic quality to it, data.response.docs, da-da-da. But I'm going to need to do that over and over again, so it's kind of useful if I just store that in a variable called articles, because now I can say things like, what I want to do is have a for loop, I goes from 0 to articles.length, I++, and I could say something like, whoops, let me leave that down here for reference. Right? I don't need to say data.response.docs headline main. I just need to say articles headline main. Well, what I need to say is, I'll say create p articles index I dot headline dot main. So this should now loop through every single object in that array, that docs array, each one having a headline object, and each headline having a main being the main headline. So if I run this now, you're going to see, here we go, I've got Rainbow International, Painbow Charms, Painbow. What's a painbow? That sounds terrible. No painbows, rainbows. East Village Birdman abandoning his nest of CDs. Anyway, there's some interesting articles about rainbows. But maybe what I want to do actually is say create element. I'm going to make an H1 element for every headline, and then I'm going to just quickly, I'm going to kind of like trying to wrap this up here. I'm going to make a paragraph element for every snippet, which would be articles index I.snippet. So again, there's a lot of data there. Articles index I.headline.main, articles index I.snippet, make an H1, make a paragraph, and now when I look at this, we can see I've now got sort of like, my own version in the New York Times right here of a bunch of articles and little snippets. And I could change, right now if I wanted to change what it's searching for, I've got to go into my code into this URL. I could change it to porcupine, and I could run it again. And you can see I've got now some prickly in name, but refined on the table. I've got some articles about porcupines. So here's what I would say to you. First of all, just showing you kind of the beginnings of what you could do here. So one thing that I think would be a good exercise is to make this work, but not have to go type into the code to change the word. Add a text input field, add a button. When the user enters something in that text input field and clicks the button, you get the articles with that search term. Another thing you might think about doing is, can you add query string arguments, right? The only query argument I have right now is q equals porcupine, but if you go back to the tool, there was a begin and an end in terms of dates. So could I get all the articles from a particular year? Could I even have that year be selected by the user? That's something you might try. Another thing you might look into, and I might need to add some link or something in this, is that the New York Times will give you the frequency that a word appeared in the New York Times for a given year. So you can look at interesting trends, like when did the word computer start getting used often in articles? Or this is a very totally trite example, but you could think of something like how many times the word war used versus the word peace. So anyway, you'll be more thoughtful or creative about what kinds of comparisons might you be interested in doing, but that's something in this article search API you can also get is something about word frequency. So there's a lot of possibilities of things you might explore. If you make stuff, share them with me. I would love to hear about it. And I hope that this was useful to you in how you might use the New York Times API. This is me signing off. WF MXY YouTube ITP hot lights room weird place over the window and computer and okay, goodbye. I'll talk to you soon. I don't have a hashtag for you. Hashtag uncomfortable person Dan. Okay, goodbye. Oh wait, this mouse fell asleep. Sleeping mouse again. Okay, and I'm gonna stop this video. Okay, so if you're still here on the live stream, there's only 4 of you left. That's nice of you, 4 of you to still be here with me. I did a video about Wordnik. I'm going to open the window. I did a video about the New York Times. Trying to think if I have stamina and energy to kind of get one more topic in here today. Let me look at my list of videos. So now I'm on to where I was, so I have about 5 more that I was going to make on this topic. So one that I was going to do was use an image API. I have an example for Instagram. I feel like Instagram always pulls up embarrassing photos. Flickr might be a good one to use. Google image search. Can I do this in 15 minutes? Well, I got to figure this out at some point. So maybe what I'll do, I have a working version of the Google image search API. It's just sort of so hard to get that one set up. Getting the API key is kind of a big hassle. And in that sense, it might be worth me doing a video on it to look at how that works. Giphy. People are going for Giphy. You know what? Let's do it. Let's look at the Giphy. I've never looked at the Giphy API. Let's look at it. So I'm going to see, I'm going to just kind of, this will just be sort of embedded here in this video. I don't know how. Why don't I just hit record and see what happens? I can always throw this file away. Hi. I'm going to try to make a video now that uses the Giphy API with 0 preparation. I've never Googled or looked at. I don't even know if I've ever looked at the Giphy website. This is probably going to go down in flames, but I'm going to give it a try. Anyway, you're going to see in 15 minutes, can I make a working code example where I query the Giphy API and get some GIFs on the screen. And you guys can, while I'm screwing stuff up, can argue over whether I should say GIF or GIF. Somebody tell me, I have no idea. So let me look for Giphy. Giphy is a website that if I go to there, search for GIFs, then I'll search for my name, which is like the most vain thing you can do. Of course, there's no GIFs with Shiftman in them. Rainbow, there we go. Rainbow is good. I've got some nice rainbow GIFs here. I like this one. This is a nice one. You can see nice rainbow GIFs. So there must be an API here. Let me look for a Giphy API. Look at that. I've got a GitHub link. That's good news. I've also got here a URL, api.giphy.com. Let's start with that URL. Okay, so often a question that comes up when using an API is, do you need to sign up? Do you need a key? I have no idea. This is exciting. Somehow this is like, I don't know, I feel, whatever. Okay, get started, Giphy search, Giphy trending, Giphy roulette. Oh, these are other apps that people have made. Let's go to get started. Oh, okay, I'm on the, give access and API keys. Public beta key. So the Giphy API is open to the public, a single public beta key to let anyone try it out. All right, that sounds good with me. So I'm going to use the public API in this demonstration. Obviously, if you're going to do something more involved, you'll want to I'm standing in front of the text, you're going to want to get a production API key, but I don't think I'd even get one. So okay, so I want to use that. I'm going to go down overview. The Giphy API provides the following, and I'm standing in front of the text again. This is terrible. Let me move this over, and let me make this a little bigger. The Giphy API provides the following JSON endpoints. So I can ask for a random one, looks like a trending one. I can get stickers by ID, one GIF by ID, and right. So this is good. So I'm just figuring out, these are the kinds of things that the API can give me. I think search is probably a good place for us to start. Random would also be a great place for us to start. But I'm, again, like I mentioned, I'm very easily embarrassed, and I'm worried about getting an embarrassing GIF. But I should not be worried. I should just live in the moment where we are. Okay, so let's see if I can find, this is, okay, so let's start piecing this together a little bit. So I'm gonna open up actually just like text edit. Actually, I'll go to P5, and I'm going to make a new project. I'm going to close this New York Times one. I'm going to hit save. I'm going to call this Giphy API, and I'm going to just give myself some space at the top in comments where I can start pasting stuff in there that I might need for working with the API. So what I definitely need is this. This is the URL to the API. I'm also going to need this public key. So let's save that there. Now, search all Giphy GIFs for a word or phrase. Punctuation will be stripped or ignored. Use a plus or URL encode for phrases. Oh yeah, Ryan Gosling GIFs. That's going to be good. That was weird. I feel like that was weird that I made a weird dance and talked about Ryan Gosling. I really should edit that out, but it's too late. Apparently that just was like I was overcome by the name Ryan Gosling. Maybe we'll get some good eating. Isn't there like an eating cereal meme with Ryan Gosling? Anyway, so this is good. This is probably all I need because it's like giving me, look at this, it's giving me all this wonderful information. This is the path, so I need that. I'm going to put that in here. And then these are some of the things I need, like search queue. So this is in case you've come here from some strange place on the internet. All of this list here are parameters. Parameters are name-value pairs that get strung together, like Q equals Ryan Gosling, and then limit is like how many results do I get? The maximum is 100. Well, if I'm getting GIFs about Ryan Gosling, oh my God, the limit is the sky is the limit, right? Do you think I could say limit equals sky and I would, the sky? Okay, so now I'm back. And so anyway, there's more stuff there, but I don't really need all that stuff. All I need is to realize that I'm going to say things like Q equals, and I'll go back to rainbow. I don't think I can handle Ryan Gosling. It's too much Ryan. It's too much for me. I can't handle it. I'll be overwhelmed. I'll be overcome. I've really lost it here. Okay. Q equals funny cat. That would be a good one. Anyway, and you can see API key. So this is really all I need. I'm done. We're good. So let's put these in some variables. This is going to be great. HTTP, okay, var API equals a string with the path, right? I'll call this endpoint. I don't even know if that's the right terminology, but this is the thing that I know needs to go after the API. And honestly, that's silly that I'm making this into two different variables, I guess. I'll just put this one up here, right? Because I'm just using the search, so I need to make this a little bit bigger. So now I have a URL, which is the URL to that API. I have a API key, which is, oh, camera, come back to me, camera. I have a key, which is this, and I'm going to put that over here. Now, I forget, what did it need? It needs to look like this, and ampersand API underscore key equals. So in my code, I'm actually going to say, I'm going to say ampersand API underscore key equals. And then I'm going to have a query be and Q equals rainbow. And by the way, this right here, a query string always begins with the question mark. So it's API key equals something and Q equals something and limit equals something, but all of that begins with a question mark. So this would be the full API, and I've kind of broken my own cardinal rule here where I started writing code before I even checked to see if I was getting results in the browser. So let's go back and let's go back to the browser here, and I need all three of these pieces. I need this piece. Let me open a new tab, that piece, followed by this piece, followed by this piece, and I'm gonna hit enter. Oh, awesome. So now it looks like I got some data, and I got a URL, a bit.ly URL, an embed URL, source. The thing that I'm looking for is the actual like GIF file. This is like an MP4 WebP URL. This one I think will do. Like I think this is like the link that I want. Like I want to get something that I can display quickly in the browser. And I'm sure I could make any of this stuff work. I could embed the like Giphy embed, or I could get the original source as an MP4 file. But what I want is something that's like pointing to an actual GIF file. If I copy that address and paste it up here in the browser, we can see that, oh yes, that I'm getting, oh, this is, wow. I never expected to get such a wonderful rainbow GIF URL. Okay, I suddenly I'm so overcome that I lost the ability to speak. Okay, so all right, so this is good. This is good. So now I got to go back. And I've got to say create no canvas. I'm like I feel like I'm in a hurry all of a sudden. I want to make that URL, which is API plus API key plus query. And ultimately, again, I don't want rainbow to be hard-coded into my code. I want to get that from the user input. But I might, did that in a couple different previous videos. You can almost think of that as an exercise for yourself. But now I'm going to say load JSON URL got data. So again, the load JSON function is a p5.js function where I give a URL from an API that's going to give me back JSON. I have a callback got data. So if I write that got data function, and I give it an argument. I've said this in like all the videos I've made today. That data variable gets filled with the data from the API. And I just want to see first, again, does this even work? I'll add a print line in there, and I'm going to run. And I can see, look, okay, so data came in there. That's a good sign. So now I've got to figure out, again, this is that thing. This is hard. I've got to figure out, I've got to unpack this JSON. So first, one thing I can notice is that data, this is going to be awkward because I'm going to have this moment where I'm saying data.data because the first key, the first property of this object that came back from Giphy is data. So then what is data? It's an array. And each element of the array, I'm assuming, is one particular GIF with lots of information about that. And what I want is index 0 images dot original.url. I guess I could get like different sizes and stuff, but let's go with data index 0.images.original.url. I think, was that right? I can't, I'm like having trouble getting all the way to the right here. Yep, that's right. I think that's right. Okay, so let's give that a try. Did that make sense? So I want to say data.data index 0.images.original.url. Could that possibly be right? Let's go back and look at that again. Data dot images dot original dot URL. Usually I have like a whiteboard really handy, which I have one over there. Okay, I think this is right. Let's just run it and have some faith. Look at that. That looks like a URL that makes sense. If I click it, I see it. Oh, good. Oh, good. Now we're talking. So guess what? Guess what P5 has for you? Oh, this camera's off. One of the functions in the P5 DOM library is a function called create img. Now there's a lot of different ways of working with images in the browser. You can load them from a file, you can draw them in a canvas, you can mess with their pixels. What this particular function does is it makes an HTML element that looks like this, right? Now there's lots of different attributes and ways that you can configure and style this particular element, but if you give it an argument, that's what becomes the source of that particular image tag. So what I want to do is take the path to my Giphy thing and then create an element that will appear on the screen, so on the web page. So what I should be able to do is just say create img instead of print line with this particular URL. And I kind of want to put just like, I'm going to just call this Giphy, just so it doesn't say like data.data. I think that's confusing to look at. So got data, fill the data with Giphy. The lighting in here changed. And now let's run this and see what happens. Look, and there I have my rainbow. Now here's the thing, Giphy, it gave me more than just one image, right? So this is pretty exciting. What I can do is now say for var I equals 0, I is less than, what's the array here? Giphy.data index 0, Giphy.data.length, I++, and I can say index I now. So I'm going to make an image element for every single image that I've gotten from Giphy. And we can see, look at this. I've got this page, they're all there. All of my, this is quite the, oh, no, this is a good one. There we go. That is, I'm just gonna like never make a video again because this is like the perfect thing to ever have in one of my videos. So anyway, you can see, boy, this is fun. There's lots of things you could probably play with. So what do you do with this? I don't know. Maybe you take user input. Maybe you arrange them in a different way. I don't know. Maybe it just makes you happy to like look at GIFs. I guess it's making me happy. We really should do the Ryan Gosling thing, I think, before this video ends. So, but that would be the. I don't even know how to spell Ryan Gosling. Let's see if that's right. So you can see, here we go. Ryan Gosling. There you are. And so this is the thing, like I'm changing the word. What could you do with this? Make something interesting with this, play around with this, send me an email or a tweet or write in the comments. I would love to know what you do with this example. Hopefully this helped you with yet another kind of API you could use. Now, here's the thing. We got to have a chat, you and me, because I've been doing a lot of these videos about working with APIs, and I kind of, one thing I haven't really showed you is what if you need to make like a whole lot of API calls all at once? There's some issues that could come up. You've got if you're creating a lot of callbacks all at once, how do you know which callbacks goes with which API call? You might be generating a lot of DOM elements all at once. It could lock up your browser. So I do need, there's some pitfalls here, and I think I need to make a video soon that just sort of covers those scenarios. And there's this thing called a JavaScript closure. What do you think the chances are there are Giphies associated with the word closure? This is like high risk here. I don't know what this is not working for me. But anyway, so I was hoping I would get something interesting to look at. Cut that out. But so I want to make a video that sort of covers this topic, and maybe we'll look at it even in the context of Giphy, which has seemed to be a nice API to use. Okay, so this was a totally off the cuff thing that I did. Hopefully it worked and you got something out of it. And I've now made 3 videos today. It's 2 o'clock, which is the time that I said I was going to end. But I'm in the recording part. Never mind, you don't care about the time. Schiffman, Ryan Gosling, hashtag rainbow heart thing. I don't know, that's too long. You figure out what that is. Wake up, mouse. Goodbye, and I'll see you soon. All right, so thank you, live stream. Wordnik related words defeated the Giphy idea is such a great idea. I wish I had thought of that and said that in the video, but I didn't. So hope you enjoyed this particular live stream today. I can stick around for like 2 or 3 minutes, 5 minutes. I'm not going to start on any new projects, but if anybody has any questions, let me know, and I'll be glad to listen. Developer overrate error. Yeah, so I know somebody posted getting a developer overrate error with the New York Times. If you're by accident using the sample key, sometimes it won't allow you to do that. Or even if your own key, if you've queried too many times, it'll like shut you off. A lot of APIs want you to query like only so often or only so many times. Okay, I think this hour and 16 minutes is up. I have had enough. You've probably had enough. And thanks for the kind feedback, Lionel R. So the next time I'm gonna do this probably will be next Thursday. Sometimes I try to sneak in an extra live stream like on a Tuesday or Wednesday morning, but I've been trying to do this weekly on Thursdays, and my plan is this spring I have a big hole in my schedule, February, March, and April, where I'm hoping to dedicate myself to kind of building this out as a more involved endeavor. What that means, I have no idea, but doing this more in a structured, scheduled, and planned way. If you have any ideas, let me know. I'm also looking for a space in New York City where I can kind of set up a recording studio. I've got this spot here at NYU, but I'm kind of looking for a more independent space that I might use. If you have any ideas, let me know. And I'm going to hit stop on the stream and talk to you guys soon.